of paper that Anne Frank was writing on. Now, this was one source of conflict for Anne and between Anne and Fritz Pfeffer. Fritz Pfeffer thought he needed to study every day. But Anne Frank also thought that she had a right to use that table and to write into her diary, to do her own.
Breaking in. There were drawbridges, portcullis gates, archers from the top of the battlements firing arrows, and other barriers to make sure nobody ever conquered the castle, and nobody ever did.
Good morning from Chickamauga Battlefield, Greensburg High students. My name's Chris Young and I'm one of the park rangers here at Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park. So where are we on the battlefield? Well, just over my right shoulder you can see the Wilder Brigade Monument, named for Colonel John T. Wilder, whose men fought here on September the 20th of 1860.
Okay, well, we're right in the hallway here at the Amelia Earhart Birthplace Museum.
Dealt more with vegetarian foods, so I'd go with him. And at the time, I was still eating meat, but observing him and his rationale for being a vegetarian, I would go with him. And now I'm a vegetarian. I think I learned a lot from his vegetarianism. It's health, but it's also philosophical too. And I think that would be my favorite memory. The first time I went to the vegetarian restaurant with him.
That is so wonderful. David Newell, Mr. McFeely, thank you so very much. This time has been precious.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to count to 3 and we'll both say speedy delivery, all right?
Okay, I'm
Here
ready.
we go. 1, 2, 3.
Hey, what's up, Greensburg High School and the entire Greensburg community? It's Drake Bell here. I know the pandemic has taken a huge toll on all of you, but hopefully I can brighten your day with a little bit of song. And here we go. Well, hello, let's go. Everybody must know love's in my heart like a bomb, blowing a song inside. I'm singing the sunshine that you're bringing now, and it makes me happy. Well, I never thought that it'd be so simple, but I found a way, and I always thought that it'd be too crazy, but I found a way. If you open up your mind, it's gonna take some time to realize, but if you look inside, I'm sure you'll find over your shoulder, you know that I told you I'd always be picking you up when you're down. So just turn around, hug me, brother.
Hello to the students of Greensburg High School. My name is William Wall and I'm an Irish writer. I write novels and poems.
So I am going to read you Ceremony for Completing a Poetry Reading.
Oh, thank you.
This is a giveaway poem. You've come gathering, made a circle with me of the places I've wandered. I give you the first daffodil open.
Greetings, Greensburg High School students. My name is Royston Ellis, and I am, or more accurately was, a beat poet. I was born in England, and 60 years ago, at the beginning of the 1960s, I began to write poetry. I wanted young people to enjoy my poems, so I teamed up with musicians who backed me on stage and television appearances while I read my poetry. There's a video on YouTube of the performance that I'd made with a band called The Shadows, who played for a rock and roll singer, Cliff Richard. So check Royston Ellis and The Shadows. A young guitarist who appeared with me often was Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. In Liverpool in 1960, I was backed by a group who called themselves the Beatles, spelt B-E-E-T-L-E-S. I suggested to them that since they played beat music and liked the beat generation of the USA, and I was a beat poet, why not call themselves Beatles, spelt B-E-A-T-L-E-S? So I added beat to beat.
Hi, Greensburg High School. This is Katherine Hancock, the author of the poetry collections Shades of Lovers and Sometimes I Fall Asleep Thinking About You. And I wanted to read you guys a poem that I wrote shortly after I graduated high school in 2017. For the girls with the frizzy hair and bitten nails, and the boys with bushy eyebrows and marionette limbs. 1. There will be the kids with perfect skin and white smiles and flawless bodies. Do not be scared of them. Often the prettiest people are the most hurt inside. 2. Find a home away from home for yourself, whether it be the gym floor, the computer lab, or the auditorium stage. You will need one.
Hiya Greensburg, or Shemai as we say here in Wales. My name's Mike Jenkins and I live in a town called Merthyr Tydfil in the South Wales Valleys. Used to be a massive industrial town producing coal and iron. All that's gone away and we're left with very little, to be honest. The poem I'm going to read is called This Is My Home, and it's written in local dialect.
This is a shout out to John Pratt and the Greensburg High School in Indiana. We are here in Mbweari, one of 3 wildlife sanctuaries of the community in Tiwarayasi. You find us in the department of Santa Cruz in the middle of the Bolivian jungle. The animals you see here are howler monkeys that live in our park. The group consists of 5 monkeys, 2 females, 2 males, and 1 baby of which we don't know the sex.
Hi, this is Megan with Project Chimps, giving a little shout out to Mr. Pratt's high school classes at Greensburg Community High School. Here's the chimps outside in the habitat this morning. Sending you guys some love and some well wishes for Project Chimps.
Welcome. So to everyone that has joined us on Zoom today, thank you so very much, and welcome to the Greensburg Chautauqua. This is my 26th Chautauqua event, which has brought to our small little neck of the world literally hundreds of culturally or historically or scientifically significant individuals, from Holocaust survivors to a Nobel Peace Laureate, really icons from all over the planet, but none are as iconic as today's guest speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to present to you Dr. Jane Goodall.
Well, thank you, John. And I don't quite agree with what you just said, but no, we'll let that pass. And so I know for you, it's the middle of the day. For me, it's towards evening. So I think the best thing I can do is to greet you as you might be greeted if you came with me to Gombe National Park in Tanzania and hear the chimpanzees. That's the chimpanzee distance call, and it simply means this is me, Jane. So this is me, Jane. And it's a great pleasure to be talking to so many students and faculty today. And I want to start for a minute at the beginning John, you just said I was iconic. Well, when I was a little girl, the last thing I wanted to be was any kind of public figure. I was terribly shy. I never spoke at school. If I was asked to speak, I made some excuse. So anyway, it all began because I was born loving animals. I was born and grew up in the UK. I was born in London and grew up in Bournemouth, where I am now. I'm speaking to you from the house where I grew up. And behind me are books that I read as a child. And just outside the window is the tree. I named him Beach. And I used to spend hours up in the branches. I felt closer to the birds. And every moment I could, I was outside and I was watching birds and squirrels and insects and plants and you name it. People say, what triggered your love of animals? And I don't know, I was born with it. I think maybe something happened when I was in my mother's womb. I don't know, but anyway, I was born loving animals and I was born to an amazing and supportive mother. And that made all the difference. So when I was 1.5, apparently, I don't remember, but she told me, she came into my room to say goodnight and found I'd taken all these wriggly earthworms to bed with me. And so most mothers would have got angry because of course there was a lot of earth too, but she just said, Jane, we need to take them outside or they might die. And then a story which you may have heard, but I tell it for a reason, because I think you have the making of a little scientist in this story. I was 4.5 years old and Mum took me to stay on a farm in the country. And as we lived in London at that time, it was very, very exciting to go to a farm where there were a proper farm, not a factory farm, cows, pigs, horses out in the fields. And I was given the job of collecting the hen's eggs, or some of them anyway. And there were about, 6, 8 little hen houses where they slept at night. And that's where they usually went to lay their eggs. So I was collecting the eggs in my little basket. And apparently, I don't remember, but I kept saying, well, where does the egg come out of the hen? I couldn't see a hole that big. And nobody told me. So I distinctly remember seeing a hen. She was brown and she was going into one of these hen houses. And I must have thought, she's going to lay an egg. So I crawled after her. Big mistake. I can still feel her wing brushing my cheek and her squawks of fear. And again, in that little 4.5-year-old mind, I must have thought, no hen will lay an egg here. This is a dangerous place. So I went into an empty hen house and waited. And apparently, I waited for at least 4 hours. The family didn't know where I was. My mother had even called the police. And yet, when she saw this little girl rushing towards the house, instead of getting angry, how dare you go off without telling us, she sat down to hear the wonderful story of how a hen laid an egg. And I still can see that hen coming in. This one was, I think it was brown as well. And seeing her rise up slightly on her legs and this spherical, slightly soft object plopping down onto the straw. So I don't know who was more excited, me or buck, 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 the hen.
My question is, what is your favorite memory with a chimpanzee?
I can certainly hear you, thank you. Well, I've got two. One is right in the early days when David Graybeard allowed me to follow him. Because at first I would let him wander off alone. I thought I didn't want to push him. And on this occasion, I lost him going through a thicket of tangled, thorny undergrowth. But when I got through, there he was sitting, looking back. I mean, it looked as if he was waiting for me. I don't know, maybe he was. So I sat down near him, and lying on the ground between us was a ripe red palm nut. Chimps love them. So I picked it up and held it out on my hand. and he turned his face away. So I put my hand closer, and he turned, he looked directly in my eyes. He reached out, took and dropped the nut, then very gently squeezed my fingers, which is how chimpanzees reassure each other. So in that moment, we communicated in a way that must have preceded human words. And he knew that my motivation was good. He didn't want the nut, and I knew that. So it was a very special moment. And the other one was when the old female Flo lost her fear to such an extent that although she was a little nervous, she was a little 4-year or 5-year or 5-month-old infant Flint towards me, unsteady on his feet, looking up at me with those big, big, curious eyes. And he reached out and touched my nose. And those two moments I will never forget.
I don't know if I have that particular key harmonica. Yeah, do you have a guitar? Are you gonna?
No,
Oh.
I am a history teacher with a bad voice that loves to sing Willie Nelson songs.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Let me see if I can. What's a good key for you to sing in?
That's a good one, Nick.
Well, here. You match me. I think.
Along, along, along. How's that?
Is that too high for you?
No, I can go a long time forgotten. How's that?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, here we go. A long time forgotten, the dreams that just fell by the way. The good life he promised ain't what she's living today. But she never complained. Bad times are the bad things she's done for. She just talked about the good times they had and all the good times.
How I love it grew. How did you know I would be so in love with
All right, I have a few shout outs here. I know that there's some people who are very excited about Elsa, big fans of Elsa out here. Gwenna, Eloise, Rylan, and Sammy, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'd like to play the Canon in D by Johann Pachelbel.
We're so honored to be here, and we're really excited to present this program for you guys. What we're going to do is we're going to take you from sort of a historical journey, from the earliest sort of Baroque opera all the way through 20th century opera. I will to leave this valley someday and find out for myself, to see all the tall buildings and all the street lights, and to be one of those myself.
Joke for Mrs. Stark's room.
Oh, yes. Here's one for you. Mr. Stark's World, are you ready? What do you call... Yeah, good. What do you call a fish with no eyes? Finally, what do you call a deer with no eyes? What do you call a deer with no eyes?
No eyes.
No idea.
The letter I.
Mr. Stark is explaining that joke.
Okay.
Ridiculous.
They're lucky.
Well, listen, it's been a real pleasure and an honor to meet you guys. Happy history.
Thank you. Some questions. I thought maybe we do a few questions and then we'll do a song and then we'll kind of mix it up like that. How does that sound?
That sounds perfect, because I don't know how it's going to sound for you guys, but that sounds absolutely perfect. So
Okay, well, we're fortunate to have some amazing voices in our high school choral department, and they are led by the talented Mrs. Simpson, who has your first question.
Ah.
Hello.
Hi.
My daughter, she was nervous about being on camera by herself. But we are both huge Wicked fans. And so I wanted to know, as your time as Elphaba, were there any times that you were singing Defying Gravity where the platform did not rise?
Sadly, yes, there was. It does happen. It happened both in New York and on Broadway and in the West End. Not very often, I'm thrilled to say, but it did happen. And when it does happen, most of the time, you just end up running forward and singing the song on the stage, which is a little anticlimactic when people have come to see you fly and to see you sing that song. So to get to the end of Act 1 and she doesn't fly is quite devastating, really. But that said, every time it did happen, there suddenly goes this kind of electric boom through the audience and on stage, and everybody seems to rise to the occasion. So it does cause a bit of excitement. But if it didn't work, you were always a bit like, oh, this is such a shame.
Right. Cool.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
My question is, what was your favorite song to sing during your time in Wicked?
It totally depended on the day, because if it was like at the beginning of the week and I was in really good vocal health, then I would love singing things like No Good Deed, and I would enjoy Gravity. But then towards the end of the week, when it's been a long 8 shows, I would like things like I'm Not That Girl and For Good, and those kind of bit more softer songs. Gravity is always electric. But on a normal day, it was No Good Deed, I think, was my favorite. I just loved the drama. I loved I loved that moment in the show where she's kind of getting all dramatic and angry, and there's not very much happening. The show is the stage is quite bare, and it's just you singing that song, which was one of my favorite moments, I think.